everyone, I'm Kim Nelson. Here's a look at what's going on this week in the news. We begin with news from Rome. Pope Francis began Ash Wednesday with a brief prayer at the Benedictines Monastery of St. Anselm, and then made the traditional Ash Wednesday procession to the Dominican-run Basilica of Santa Sabina on Rome's Aventine Hill for the Mass. There, the Pope in his homily talked about returning to the Lord during this Lenten season.
Ritorna senza paura. Questo è il tempo opportuno per tornare a casa, alla casa del Padre mio e Padre vostro. Questo è il tempo per lasciarsi toccare il cuore. Rimanere nella via del male è solo fonte di illusione e di tristezza. La vera vita è qualcosa di molto diverso e il nostro cuore lo sa bene. Dio non si stanca né si stancherà di tendere la mano. Ritorna senza paura a sperimentare la tenerezza risanatrice e riconciliatrice di Dio. Lascia che il Signore guarisca le ferite del peccato e compia la profezia fatta ai nostri padri. Vi darò un cuore nuovo. Metterò dentro di voi uno spirito nuovo, toglierò da voi il cuore di pietra e vi darò un cuore di carne.
Looking now at news from around the country. After a shooting rampage at a high school in South Florida, Miami Archbishop Thomas Wenski urged community members to come together to support one another in this time of grief. 17 people were left dead and another 12 wounded after a lone gunman walked into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland and started shooting. The shooting suspect, 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz, was later apprehended and has been charged with 17 counts of premeditated murder in the shooting. In a telegram to Archbishop Wenski, Pope Francis assured all those affected by this devastating attack of his spiritual closeness, with the hope that such senseless acts of violence may cease. The Pope invoked divine blessings of peace and strength on the South Florida community. More news from Rome. During his meeting with Jesuits in Chile during his apostolic visit in January, Pope Francis told them that he tries not to think of opposition as resistance because that cuts off an opportunity for dialogue, discernment, and learning something, or at least recognizing a need to explain something better. The Jesuit Journal published a transcript of the Pope's remarks from the trip on February 15th. The Pope also talked about meeting with victims of clergy sex abuse. Rome Reports has more on the Pope's remarks with the Jesuits.
The Pope prefers not to read criticism from those who accuse him of being a heretic, and he does so to maintain his mental health. The Holy Father says others read them for him and advise him when they involve serious accusations. In addition, Pope Francis reveals that he meets with abuse victims either personally or in groups on Fridays to hear their stories. The Pope shared these things during private encounters with Jesuits on his trip to Chile and Peru. The content of the conversations has been published by the magazine La Civiltà Cattolica, headed by Jesuit Antonio Spadaro. There, Pope Francis mentioned youth church institutions whose founders committed abuse. He says it's always involved a triple abuse, first of authority, then sexual, and third of finance. The Pope says all abuse cases are terrible and urges priests to hear victims' testimonies to make themselves aware of their pain. Vatican spokesman Greg Burke has confirmed Pope Francis meets with victims a few times a month to listen to them and try to heal the wounds caused by abuse. The encounters are done with absolute discretion to respect victims and their suffering. In the talks with Jesuits, the Pope also said rumors bother him the most and that criticisms must be heard because they always contain some truth.
More news from around the country. In a statement released this past week, the president of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, Cardinal DiNardo, is encouraging Catholics across the country to join with Pope Francis February 23rd for a special day of prayer and fasting for peace, with special prayers for Congo and South Sudan. In the statement, the Cardinal noted that South Sudan won its independence in 2011 only to find itself a victim to corruption and a bloody civil war. In Congo, the Cardinal said the government fails to honor the Constitution as the Catholic Church courageously promotes a peaceful resolution of the conflict between the ruling and opposition parties. The Cardinal suggested that the faithful turn their fasting into almsgiving and support the work of Catholic relief services in both countries. And finally in the news, with many people celebrating Valentine's Day this past week with traditional standards such as chocolates, flowers, cards, the World Meeting of Families Dublin had a different way of bringing couples together that could be used throughout the whole year. One report says more from Ireland.
While chocolates, romantic dinners, flowers, and an average of 150 million cards are exchanged on Valentine's Day, the World Meeting of Families 2018 in Dublin is offering another option to help couples grow in their love this year: tokens. Available throughout Ireland, these tokens offer various ways for couples to rekindle their spark and remember the importance of their love. Options include taking time to remember how they met, go for a family outing, a technology-free evening together, time together to pray, and one more, chosen by this engaged Irish couple.
We picked go for a hand-to-hand walk together.
The most time I enjoyed staying or being with her was when we went for nice walks together.
The tokens are meant to invite couples to grow in love and unite families like never before. They're symbolically available at the Carmelite Church in Whitefriars Street, Dublin, where St. Valentine's relics also reside. In telling St. Valentine's traditional story as a priest in Rome, prayer requests can be made to the patron saint of couples who are in love, preparing for marriage, or are already married. It's just one more way the World Meeting of Families is looking to promote the family and reflect on Pope Francis's words in Amoris Laetitia as they gear up for the big event in Dublin from August 21st to the 26th.
And that is all the information we have for you this time. I'm Kevin Nelson. Don't forget, you can keep up to date on Catholic news throughout the week with Catholic Newsbreak right here on the Catholic TV network.